Hello, everybody. This is Avatar Ken, and today, me and a friend from Discord, Savage Carnage, will be having a formal Avatar debate on who would win a fight, Iroh or Ozai. And we will be using feats and canon statements to prove each other's sides and opinions, basically. So, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Savage Carnage?
Greetings. My name is Savage Carnage. I go by Mick in my YouTube account, but it's very humbling and and it's a great honor to be here. And I'm grateful that Mr. Avatar Ken has introduced me. And today we're going for the big guys in the entire show, Fire Lord Ozai and almost Fire Lord Iroh. This has been a debate that's been going on for a while, and and we are going to discuss it together with Avatar Ken.
All right. So, first of all, I'm gonna lay out what the rules are. Basically, the only things we can use are canon, statements, and feats. So, like, if it's something that we think we can bring it up, but we can't use it as a point because there's no canonical basis for it. Also, we will be going by a turn-based system. So, for instance, if I make a point, I have a minute to make my point, and then Savage can make his point, and while he's making his point, I will refrain from speaking, and vice versa. And I'm gonna let Savage go first. And if I didn't mention it, Savage is debating for Iroh, and I am debating for Ozai. All right, so you can go ahead and take it away, Savage.
Of course. Now, during this debate, I would like to go into the fan consensus and mention something that has been going on with Ozai, if I am allowed. And Ozai, our boy's been hit with the allegations of being a fraud. And unfortunately, this is going for his entire thing. People have been debating whether he's even strong enough to go against Tarlok. Now, I believe that he is a very top tier fighter, but I believe it doesn't stack up just as much as Iroh. And so today I'm going to be going into the feats of Iroh, mostly he is mostly extremely known for, which is the destroying the wall and bossing Sei. Now that attack potency has not really been seen anywhere in the show. And if you notice carefully, as I mentioned, he concentrates the ball into a small point before letting it all burst out during the comet. Now, he wouldn't need to do this, but if he does this by that level, he should be able to do that in no comet level. And in that case, that is the highest attack potency we've seen in the show. And it does show, in my theory at least, to be included in a combustion bending type of move. If he was doing that, I believe he should be able to outpower or outperform anything that Ozai would be able to do just by that attack alone. Besides that, I would like to mention that Iroh has been training with Ozai for his entire life. So he should know exactly what Ozai does and when to attack in the best way to hopefully catch Ozai off balance or endure any of the attacks that he is inflicted by. But I will take it away for Iroh and go off with anything that you might counter, Mr. Ken.
All right, so there's a couple things. Most of what you said, I would actually 100% agree with. The only thing I don't is the last thing you said about Iroh having trained with Ozai. I do acknowledge, like, canonically they have trained. That is in, like, canon books. But there have also been many times where we have
that you were saying, and I do agree with you on that. First, I would like to say why we haven't seen an interaction between Iroh and Ozai for a while. It's because the early story concepts were him being just Fire Lord, Fire Prince Zuko's firebending teacher. And that's about it. Like, we didn't get anything else besides that. And so that was the early story drafts. But they decided that it would be more interesting if the Iroh were to be his uncle. In that way, he would have more of a connection between Fire Prince Zuko. But now they changed up the script, and now he is his uncle. And because they did that, a lot of story ideas didn't get improved on, like interactions between them. But I believe that although that is a very big thing, like why wasn't Prince Ozai put up to be the Fire Lord before Iroh? Because it's very much a meritocracy from what I saw from the Fire Nation. At least that's what it seems like. So why wasn't he considered that to be earlier? Because at the same time, like if Fire Prince Ozai was really that much powerful than Iroh, then why didn't anyone petition him to be the Fire Lord instead of Iroh? And that didn't happen until the very last moment when we finally decided, okay, we can't okay, we can't have this whole thing go up. You see, his son is dead, and now we need to have a new Fire Lord.
Oh yeah, I see your point. With the
Hello?
meritocracy thing, that is absolutely true. I can't attack that point because in the Fire Nation, especially after Sozin took over, it was very much like how powerful of a firebender are you? What have you done? Type deal, right? So I agree that that does play a point into it. But I do think it's a little bit deeper than that because we're talking about like how powerful the characters are. Politically, I think they're about neck and neck. Like Iroh is incredibly well respected, like basically around the entire world for being the Dragon of the West. But we also know from canon materials that Ozai was pretty well beloved too, probably mostly in the Fire Nation, but people outside of it do know who he is. So in terms of like the merit, I would say that in terms of merits, Iroh is slightly more reputable than Ozai. I would give you that. But to move away from that, I do want to talk about like specific feats that we have. So, for instance, right, like one thing that I think people will bring up about Iroh that is actually pretty respectable is that he actually wins a lot of his fights without having to bend that much. That is
Yes.
a very, very good feat from him. But like in a lot of those encounters, he's fighting like novices, basically, right? I don't think we don't ever get many
Well,
scenes
even
where
then,
Ozai.
if we're talking novice,
No, you can go ahead.
well, if you remember closely, like Zuko came in with two swords. Can you hear me? Zuko came in with two swords, and he was able to intimidate him just by having those two swords. If Ozai was really that much more proficient, he wouldn't have been intimidated by just Zuko, because to his knowledge, he's way more powerful than Zuko flat out. But however, when Zuko came in, Ozai feared for his life without Bender. So in that case, Iroh would be more of a fighting a prodigy than his brother. I mean, I don't see Iroh ever running away. He's been described as a one-man army. And also, going with that, when discussing Iroh as that feat with the wall, I would say so too, but I would say he's a little more proficient than Ozai, because Ozai seems to know how to combust the flames at his palm level, whereas Iroh was able to combust the flames and almost levitate it off the ground and be able to combust into one attack, whereas Ozai is only able to combust, then release the fire from his palms. And in that case, I would say that Iroh is a little more better at combusting a level than Ozai. And not to say this against anything with Ozai, because he does know every single subsect of firebending like his brother. He knows how to combustion bend, lightning bend, normal fire bend. I believe there is a lot of stuff that he is capable of doing, but Ozai seems to be able to master it in a way that can catch his opponents off guard. But would you like to? Would you like to add anything else from that?
Yes, in terms, I'll give you this too. In terms of straight up intelligence, Iroh is definitely more intelligent of a firebender than Ozai. I would give that to you all day. We just have the feats and the statements to prove that. But like moving away from pure power, right? Because that feat, like I can't really destroy that feat because that feat is the biggest feat in the show. But in a fight, right, like it's gonna probably come down to more than just who can put out the purest amount of power, right? So with that feat, even though it is the biggest in the show, it did take him quite a while to do it, and it did take him quite a bit of strength, right? And I think that that's potentially the biggest weakness of that feat is that yes, he can achieve something that we didn't see anyone ever do in terms of power, but the charge up to this technique is so high. It took him a couple moments to do it. That in a fight with someone like Ozai, where he can literally fly with the fire, and he has like the best mobility feats with the fire that we see in the show, is he ever going to be able to hit Ozai with that?
Well, the thing is about that, in the show, we actually see him combust the whole wall. But the very next shot, he shows off another high level attack with wait, I might be misremembering it, but I believe he did a light. Used firebending to defeat destroy those posters of like the Fire Nation from Bossing Say. And that was a very and that was just to show like if there was some level of fatigue he was going for, he was able to hide it. And also off the tangent, but like at the end of that scene, there was a little bit of like a chord drop, like the chord drops in Azula, which shows that he was a very much being a manipulator in the entire thing. But besides that, I believe that there was another feat that I'd like to bring up from the show, which is he was able to capture a Dai Li agent in Bossing Say and be able to use to bring him to Team Avatar. Now this is a big feat because Dai Li's never attack on single groups. They always have 5 or 6 people around them. He captured him, and while nobody noticed, he goes around at their city with nobody noticing him to the point where was able to very accurately figure out where Team Avatar was and ask them for help. So he's very, very good at espionage. And in espionage, it can work with an element of surprise. In a big battlefield situation, I believe he would be able to hide away from Ozai long enough, find him at his most vulnerable, and release the most powerful firebending attack he could muster up.
Yes, in terms, like I'll give you this too. In terms of straight up intelligence, Iroh is definitely more intelligent of a firebender than Ozai. I would give that to you all day. We just have the feats and the statements to prove that. But like moving away from pure power, right? Because that feat, like I can't really destroy that feat because that feat is the biggest feat in the show. But in a fight, right, like it's gonna probably come down to more than just who can put out the purest amount of power, right? So with that feat, even though it is the biggest in the show, it did take him quite a while to do it, and it did take him quite a bit of strength, right? And I think that that's potentially the biggest weakness of that feat is that yes, he can achieve something that we didn't see anyone ever do in terms of power, but the charge up to this technique is so high. It took him a couple moments to do it. That in a fight with someone like Ozai, where he can literally fly with the fire, and he has like the best mobility feats with the fire that we see in the show, is he ever going to be able to hit Ozai with that? That's what I would basically ask.
Yes, but that doesn't go into the thing where he didn't do it while he was alone. He did it while everyone else was around, and he was able to capture him and use him for interrogation. And that actually just shows how sneaky Iroh is. Well, besides that, I believe there is one thing where we are talking to Zula, where she was very intimidating, and she was able to be intimidating in the show. And she came in, she told him, and the guy was intimidated. But that's the thing: the Dai Li individually were never a threat. Them together is a threat. And Iroh was just able to completely disband that whole thing and just get one of their members with nobody noticing. And that shows how sneaky he is, not necessarily how strong he is. Uh, and that also goes to show that, okay, so he captured him, Big Wolf, but you see, he was able to locate Team Avatar almost instantly. And that was that was the thing, like, does he know where they are at all the time? Like, does he just know where everyone is at all times? Or, I know that he's been in the spirit realm, but how does he know where everyone is in the situation that he finds himself in? I mean, he didn't know where Appa was at one time, but he knew where Team Avatar was. I guess he bumped into them earlier, and he tried to keep Zuko away from him. But that goes to show that they went to a different location, and he knew where they were, and that was a big thing. And I'm just like, how much does he know? How much of the story was just for because he chose to let them move on? And in that case, I would say that he is sneaky enough to be able to lure Ozai into to the right position and then attack.
All right, but like in the fight between him and Ozai, do you believe that it'll get to that point? Like, okay, we should, I guess, establish like a baseline. Like, in that fight, can Ozai last long enough to get to that point where he can trick Ozai?
I would like to bring up a little thing of how firebenders are able to do this. Like, don't they burn themselves alive just by the first fireball? Apparently, firebenders are able to deflect oncoming fire launched at them. In that case, I believe that their feats are similar enough for us to figure out that they are able to fight. And Ozai and Iroh are completely different types of fighters. Ozai tries to outspeed or outpower anyone in front of him, catch his opponent off guard, and then just destroy him with his fire. Whereas Iroh always tries to fight defensively. Like a stone firm upon the shore, he will endure wave after wave of abuse. And I believe that in that case, based on what we know about them, he should be able to analyze and just like know what Ozai is able to do. And if Ozai fights him from the sky, then all he does is just disappear like that espionage.
Okay, I see your point there.
Right?
All right, so another point I guess I would get into is like in terms of the kind of espionage thing. I think that's a good point, but it's like, would that work as good on someone like Ozai, who kind of knows Iroh and is a manipulator himself? Like, do you think that Ozai's manipulation is a match for Iroh's like kind of intelligence and espionage?
Well, the thing about manipulation, I believe that Ozai is more of a social manipulator. At no point did I ever believe that Ozai was going to give the Fire Nation to Azula. He wanted to rule it all, so he gave so he basically made the term Fire Lord obsolete. And in the case of firebending, well, he wasn't able to manipulate Aang to do shit. Like, he just like tried to fight him, and Aang kept on trying to get away from him, and he just kept on trying to fight him more. So, in the terms of like a battlefield manipulation, I don't think that he is as much of a manipulator as Ozai. Because Ozai will always try to find a little bit of a chink in your armor and abuse it, like he did with the Rough Rhinos. He came in, he smacked the ass of one Rough Rhino, tied up a rope on the other guy, and then he just like let them fly. I think that he knows enough about his terrain, his advantages, and his disadvantages to be able to know where to go and how to fight. And there is one thing we aren't mentioning, which is the ability to lightning bend. And yeah, like Ozai, like nobody can do it better than him. He goes so fast and so quickly with his lightning bending to the point where you actually fear the outcome of that whole lightning. Unlike Azula's lightning, she does that sometimes a little bit too much. But Ozai, when he did it, it was almost like, oh god, he was gonna kill Zuko. But but like Iroh if Zuko was able to deflect it, I think that Iroh literally just invented that move to go against his brother, and that would be a great situation to use it. So, how do you think would Ozai would even be able to survive that?
I don't think that he would be able to survive that. So I do think that it's gonna come down to like, can Iroh stick in the fight as long as Ozai can? Because if lightning comes up with them, I can acknowledge that yeah, if it gets to that, Ozai is basically done. And the reason why he's done is because he just straight up has no counter for that. Like, I'm not going to be disingenuous. I understand that even though Ozai's like agility and mobility is insane, it's nowhere near fast enough to dodge lightning. So if it comes down to lightning, I do think that Iroh will win. So I'll give you that. But my biggest point is like, if we're doing this fight, like, do you think lightning is gonna come up like, first, middle, last? Like, do you think that's gonna? I'm not gonna act like it's not gonna come up. But do you think it will come up like relatively soon in the fight?
In the story per second, I don't believe that it doesn't come up. You see, here's the thing. I kind of see why the showrunners didn't want to have Iroh fight Ozai, because if Ozai fought him and he saw Iroh, most likely Ozai would try to run away because he's got nothing to lose and he needs to get the whole mission ready. The only reason why he fought Aang as long as he did is because he was the Avatar. Oh, Iroh, he's his brother and he could kill him. So Team Avatar would probably try to trap him, and most likely one or two members is going to die. I mean, this is still Ozai we're talking about, and in that case, Iroh would have an advantage there. He would kill him, and at what cost? At what cost? And too many young people have died, and Iroh is the new Fire Lord. And at that point, the history would not see it as good, and that's how it would end. But yes, like, I believe that lightning is the big deciding factor of this fight, and it just, why wouldn't it come up? Why wouldn't just Iroh come in and just say, okay, lightning bend, and then he just ends the whole thing? But how it would happen, that would probably be a big thing to come up with it too.
All right. Here's another question.
So,
Do you think Ozai is aware that Iroh can do that?
well, I would be surprised if he wasn't, because everyone always says how he killed this dragon, how he is the dragon of the West, how he is this big of a threat. If he didn't know that he could lightning bend, then that is a big surprise to that whole relationship, or what kind of relationship they had. Because as far as I know, their whole relationship is basically, yeah,
I meant like lightning redirection. Like, does he know that Iroh can redirect like that?
oh, probably. Because you see, in Lightning Redirection, he saw Zuko do it, and he's like, Zuko's not smart enough to figure that out. And he was like, it must be Iroh. So yeah, that whole thing would probably be going on. The Team Avatar would try to trap him. More than likely, a few of them would die, and then Iroh would have to come in and slay his brother.
Okay, but if he knows that Iroh can just redirect anything he throws at him, would he ever use lightning?
Well, if he never used it, then let's not forget Iroh can use lightning, and that's that. Like, yeah, yeah, but that's why that whole thing didn't happen. Because the story would not be the same way. a Team Avatar would probably be discontinued. The Iroh would become the new Fire Lord. He would have no descendants, and the whole story would just end in a very terrible note.
I
Right?
agree with that. It would have been much worse if Iroh had been forced to fight his brother. But I do have a question. If he doesn't use lightning because he knows that Iroh can just throw it back at him, I know that Iroh can use lightning, but it comes down to this: Do you think that Ozai has the capabilities to dodge it? And I don't mean like point blank. I mean like when Ozai fought Aang, Aang was able to dodge several lightning strikes. He wasn't able to dodge all of it, but also he didn't have to because he knew redirection. So do you think that like since we're talking about Iroh and Iroh, he's great at lightning, but he's nowhere near as fast as Ozai. Do you think he's going to be able to generate lightning quick enough to ever get him if he's dodging? Unless it's like point blank.
Well, here's the thing. We're talking about the Avatar, and yes, if he dodges lightning, I'm like, okay, well, that's the Avatar. He's got all that air power, sure. But the second that he redirected the lightning, Ozai looked like he was a deer in the headlights. It seemed like there was nothing he could do. And in that case, I would have to say no, but I wouldn't be surprised because, Fire Lord. But I'm like, from the feats we see, he didn't have any kind of like lightning prevention thing. He doesn't know what to do after the lightning redirection except keep fighting with firebending. And not to go against Ozai, because when Aang did those firebending tendrils, Ozai did the same firebending tendrils just by looking at it. So he does have a lot of battlefield IQ, but nowhere near the manipulation as Iroh does. And as for lightning dodging, no, I don't think that'll happen. And finally, his firebending as a prodigy. Yeah, he's a prodigy, but you know, um, so's Iroh, I believe, or at least if he's not a prodigy, he knows enough to like be able to handle everything. So, like, in case of the story, it makes sense why he didn't fight him. But if he wanted to, then I mean, there's not a lot Ozai can do, shockingly enough. And he does have a lot of maneuverability, but, that's not like the most, outrageous thing to go off of. From what we see with the Azula versus Zuko fight as I go over, Azula kept on relentlessly attacking Zuko, but Zuko was able to wear her down. Mentally and physically, she was worn down enough to be able to be taken care of without lightning. At that point, it just comes down to him attacking the teammates, and if he does that, Iroh will just know what to do. It's just like there's no saving them. It's time to end your life. And in that case, that's that.
With Azula, like yeah, you did mention that she was kind of mentally slipping, and I think that was a big reason as to why that happened. But if she hadn't been mentally slipping, I think she could have at least matched Zuko, if not beaten him.
Oh, well, about that, like, the thing is, every single other fight we ever see Zuko participate with Azula, she is able to take him down with one or two hits. And, like, it's not even a close fight in that case. But in the final fight, there were a hit after a hit, and she was not holding back, and not even a fraction of it was able to hit Zuko. He was able to match it, and even outperform it in a couple of times. And at that point, and it doesn't just come down to power. He was able to do it because of all the stuff he's learned with the earth bending, water bending, all of that stuff. He was able to outmatch her just by his feats alone, without using too much, without accessing her wasting his energy too much, like her. And in that case, like similarly mentally, sure, but at the same time, Zuko does have more experience than her, bending wise. And in that case, he knows how to conserve his energy for the right attack to happen. And he was just waiting the whole time just for the lightning bending. If it's just fire bending, I believe that Zuko still has the edge. And as for the lightning bending, well, it's just a toss up between who is going to throw what lightning. And I believe that Zuko was going to win that fight regardless.
Okay, I see that,
Yes.
but like I do want to bring up the fact that there were statements that were made. Like Iroh wanted Katara to go with Zuko, and even when they did do the Agni Kai, Katara did bring up that Iroh said that it would take both of them to fight Azula. And I guess what I think is Iroh was talking about like Azula in her right mind, not Azula mentally slipping. So what do you think of that?
Well, Azula in her right mind would happen, but not in that way. See, remember in Bossing Say, Zuko was coming in and he was really ready for her. He was able to say, "All right, I'm coming for you." And then Azula came in and she said, "You know what? Not in the mood." And then just walks away. And at that point, he was caught, not because he was fighting her, because I think he was experienced enough to be confident enough to fight her, and for some reason Azula didn't want to fight him, even though she had the lightning bending. So even by that, I think by battlefield estimation, she knew that he was going to lose. So she was going to lose. So in that case, I believe that Azula, although she would have been able to, I think that he was afraid that all of the henchmen around her would overwhelm Zuko like they did before, and that's why he brought in Katara. But Katara, Zuko just knows way too much to be able to not predict what Azula would do. And in that case, that's why Katara was there. But, as we know, she disbanded her entire guard, her royal court, her everything, and she was on her own. But if he knew what she did, because he was prepared for her to be not mentally slipping. So that's why she had Katara there. But I don't think that it would have been a situation where Zuko couldn't handle it one on one.
All right. So I do want to go
Let's do it.
ahead since we did start talking about like Azula and Zuko. I guess like I'll go ahead and I'll concede to you
Uh huh.
in this debate that Iroh would win. I just want to do that for the sake of clarity because people watching this might be like, "Why are you guys talking about Azula?"
I mean, I do understand that. I do understand. I'm sorry, but that's the closest thing my mind can go to because I don't really know what the fight would look like. I can go by evidence, but the evidence I can go to is I don't know how it would end or how it would start. I probably know how it ends, but I don't know how it would start or what moves they would pull up specifically, or if it would even happen. Because Ozai doesn't have anything to lose if he leaves the battlefield. He's still the Phoenix King and everything. So the fight would probably go like Azula and Zuko because those two were trained by the two masters. From Ozai, between everything he knows, and Zuko, between everything Iroh knows. So I believe that it is a fair comparison to power scale those two together in comparison to the masters. That's all I'm saying.
No, I wasn't saying that you couldn't do that. I was just saying that I concede that Iroh would win.
Good. In that case, that's why I believe it's good power scale to like see those two in comparison to the two masters. But yes, that's how I see the story ending if Iroh ever came against his brother, which is probably why he never did because he's got the White Lotus, he's got the entire like Fire Nation that respects him. He could literally go into a coup and take over the Fire Nation so easily. But if he did that, he would have to disband Ozai's family. And all he ever wanted to do was take Zuko and put him on the throne. And it took a while just training up Zuko and convincing everyone that he is the Fire Lord. So that's why the story went into it. Everyone needs to appreciate Iroh because the story would probably not be the way it is if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, I agree with
You know
that.
what I mean?
I do want to go ahead and explain to people who might watch this in the future why I conceded and why I think your argument was better than mine. And it basically came down to the lightning thing. It came down to how close these two are in skill, and it came down to like a lot of the things that Ozai can do, not necessarily probably being enough to defeat Iroh. and Iroh just having more hacks and more abilities than Ozai has, like the lightning redirection and the such, right? So I just wanted to go ahead and clarify why I conceded, because I actually think that your argument was pretty good.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Avatar